Welcome, my dear students. This is Barsarani Padhi, lecturer in botany in Nalanda Vidya Mandir College, Berhampur. Today we will discuss about your first chapter in botany, that is diversity in the living world. Before we discuss about what is diversity, let's talk about what is living. We see many things in our surrounding environment. Those may be living or non-living, and we can easily recognize which one is living and non-living. For example, man, cow, dog, rabbit, different plants like tamarind tree, mango tree, banyan tree, etc. are living. Similarly, soil, air, water, chair, table, computer, etc. are non-living. So on which basis these are categorized? There are certain criteria a living being must fulfill to be called as living. Those criteria are main criteria: growth, reproduction, metabolism, and consciousness. So all these four important characters must be fulfilled by living organisms. First one is growth. Growth is the natural phenomena occurring in all living organisms, in which one organism becomes from a teeny cell to a complete organism. In growth, generally it occurs by the process of mitosis, in which one cell gives rise to two cells, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and so on, by the process of common cell division or mitosis. When a human embryo is inside the mother's womb, it is a teeny pea-like structure, but when we become an adult, we become about several feet long. Similarly, in case of plants, when a seed is planted in soil, it is a few centimeters, but when it becomes an enormous tree, it becomes several meters long. Thus, growth is divided into two types. One is definite growth or limited growth, as seen in case of animals. Another one is indefinite growth or unlimited growth, as seen in case of plants. In animals, the growth is definite or limited because we grow up to a certain age limit and we grow a certain number of organs, like 2 legs, 2 hands, etc. But in case of plants, there is no certainty. They can grow many branches, many roots, etc. That's why their growth is known as indefinite growth. So growth, but also occurs in non-living things when some external substances accumulate on their surface. For example, a mountain. When we deposit many rocks and extra soil on its surface, it will grow in size up to another few meters. But that growth is not intrinsic, that is extrinsic by external growth. Next criteria is reproduction. To produce again, every living organism are capable of producing another living organism similar to themselves, that we call as offspring. Again, reproduction also divided into two types. One is sexual reproduction, another one is asexual reproduction. In case of sexual reproduction, there are two parents, male parent and female parent. Male parent and female parent produce male and female gametes respectively, and those fuse to form zygote, then zygote to embryo, and then embryo to a new being, new organism. But in case of asexual reproduction, here only one parent is involved, and the offspring produced is completely similar to the parent. Hence, the offsprings are known as clones. Asexual reproduction occurs in lower organisms like amoeba, bacteria, paramecium, etc. But sexual reproduction is a special type of reproduction occurring in highly evolved organisms like human, cat, tiger, lion, and flowering plants. But also reproduction has certain exceptions, as it is absent in case of mules, worker bees, and infertile human couples. Mules are the hybrids of two organisms, that are horse and donkey. These hybrids cannot reproduce. Similarly, worker bees are female haploid honeybees. They also can't reproduce. And infertile human couples are those couples who cannot bear children. These are the exceptional case of reproduction. They cannot reproduce, but that does not mean we can call them as non-living. We will call them as living, but with certain deficiencies. So we did discuss about two criteria, that is growth and reproduction. Next criteria seen in living organisms is metabolism. Metabolism is the chemical process occurring in all living organisms. Metabolism is again divided into two types, anabolism and catabolism. Two parts actually, anabolism and catabolism. See, what is anabolism? Anabolism is also known as the building of process. And catabolism is also known as the breaking down process. Here in anabolic processes in our body, smaller components sum up to produce a larger component. Similarly, in catabolism, a larger component breaks down into many smaller components. Example, anabolism, photosynthesis or allokosleshana. In photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water adds up to produce carbohydrate, water, and also oxygen is evolved. So here see, two smaller components sums up to produce a larger component. Here building up is done. But in catabolism, example is respiration. In respiration, what occurs? Carbohydrate, a complex product, breaks down into carbon dioxide, water, and some amount of energy. So here see, a complex product breaks down into simpler forms. So it is the breaking down process. The both this building up, breaking down, or anabolism and catabolism together known as metabolism. So inside a living organism, many metabolic processes are taking place, like respiration, digestion, excretion in plants, photosynthesis, etc. So metabolism is an important character exhibited by living organisms. Next criteria is consciousness. All living organisms are conscious what are happening in their surrounding environment. We all respond to external stimulus. Stimulus means external factors like light, temperature, cold, etc. When you touch a hot object, you immediately withdraw from it. That is a natural response because we can feel temperature. Similarly, all other living organisms can also respond to external stimuli, and that's why we are called living organisms. And human are special group that are the greatest creation of God. They are conscious of itself and themselves, and also what is happening in their surrounding, also what is happening with other organisms. So these four criteria are the important features of living beings: growth, reproduction, metabolism, and consciousness. Next, let's discuss about biodiversity. So see, biodiversity. Bio means living organisms, diversity means differentiability. Varieties of living organisms we see in our environment. Varieties of animals, varieties of plants. There are also microbes which we cannot see, but they are present in our surrounding. So the sum of all the plants, animals and microorganisms are referred to as biodiversity. It is estimated that there are about 30 million of species in our Earth's surface, but among them only 1.7 to 1 million species are till recognized and identified. Rest 90%, 85 to 90% are still unidentified. So all this biodiversity are categorized into certain groups and certain types, and they are studied in the branch taxonomy. So taxonomy and systematics is the oldest branch of biology, and the father of taxonomy is known as Carlos Linnaeus. In systematics, we study about the relationship between all the living organisms, while taxonomy is a thoroughly study about identification, nomenclature, and classification of those organisms. In this process, in taxonomy, when a species is newly found, it is identified, then it is given a certain name that is known as nomenclature, and it is categorized into certain group for easy recognition, that is classification. So we'll discuss about nomenclature in details. So nomenclature refers to naming of living organisms. Like we are all named a certain name by which we are called. Similarly, other things like fruits, they are named like mango, pomegranate, grapes, etc. Similarly, animals, cat, dog are named a certain name, and we all recognize them by that name. But when we go to some other place other than our regional space, then we cannot recognize their name. That's why a universal name is applied to each living organism by which they are known by the same name worldwide. That is known as nomenclature. This process was initiated by two organizations that are ICBN and another one is ICZN. ICBN stands for International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. This organization provides all the botanical names to all the plant groups, and ICZN stands for International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. This organization provides names to all the animal groups. Thus, there are two organizations. They gave all the living organisms a certain name, and that name is known as scientific name or biological name. And scientific name for writing, there are certain rules. Let's talk about those rules. So, for nomenclature, there are most 4 important rules. So first rule is, I'll give you an example, mango tree. Mango tree we call in our regional language as amba. In Hindi it is known as am. In English we'll call it a mango, but it is Mangifera indica in scientific name. So the first rule for nomenclature is it must be a Latin or Greek word? So Mangifera indica, here is a Latin word. Latin and Greek word are only applied for scientific name because these two languages are known as dead languages, as there are no new addition to these languages, and also they are used by very few people in our world. So first rule, it must be a Latin or Greek word. Second rule, in all scientific name there are two components. First component is known as generic name, and the second component is known as specific epithet. In Mangifera indica, Mangifera is the generic name and indica is the specific epithet. Again, another example I will give you, man. In man, Homo is the generic name and sapiens is the specific epithet. And together we call man as Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens is the biological or scientific name of man. So, generic name and specific epithet, the second rule. Next, third rule. Third rule of nomenclature is underlining the scientific name. The names are underlined. Here see, I underlined Mangifera indica, but separately. Similarly, Homo sapiens, they must be underlined. Next rule, fourth rule, and the last rule. According to this rule, when handwritten, the scientific names must be underlined, but when typed, they are written in form of italics. Okay. Next, another rule. The generic name must start with a capital letter. As you can see here in Homo generic name, it is capital, and in Mangifera, M is capital. First letter only. Similarly, the specific epithet must start with a small letter. As you can see here, sapiens, small letter, indicare, I is small letter. These are the rules for nomenclature. Biological names are named on basis of these rules. So here see, Mangifera indica written in italics. It is typed, hence it is written in italics. So this is nomenclature. Next, let's discuss about classification. Classification means categorizing, classifying. So if I will give a bunch of books, on which basis will you classify them? You mostly you will classify them on the basis of their subject. You will classify the chemistry book differently, botany book differently, then zoology, chemistry, physics, English, mathematics, etc. Why do we classify them? Because we will easily find them when we again search for them. Similarly, living organisms are also classified for their easy recognition and easy identification. So this classification of living organisms is known as taxonomic hierarchy. It is the taxonomic hierarchy or it is also known as taxonomic categories. There are total 7 categories to classify an organism. First one is kingdom, next one is phylum or division, next class, order, family, genus and species. These are the 7 fundamental categories of taxonomic hierarchy. For example, I'll give you an example of man, and let's see how man is categorized. Man belongs to kingdom Animalia, as man is an animal. Next, it belongs to phylum Chordata. Class Mammalia, as we all are mammals. Order Primates, in which all humans, monkey, gibbon, gorilla, etc. belong. Family is Hominidae. Then genus Homo, and species is written as Homo sapiens, and they are underlined. So here I did not write sapiens extra because this specific epithet has no meaning excluding the genus. We must write the generic name with specific name closely. Next, another example, wheat. Wheat in Odia is called Gahama. So wheat belongs to kingdom Plantae. So Plantae is plants. Plantae kingdom jaha, plants kingdom taha. Similarly, Animalia is similar to animals, but these are only Latin words, that's why it is written as Plantae instead of plant. Next, wheat belongs to division Angiospermae because it is a flowering plant. And class is Monocotyledonei. Because they are all monocots. Next order is Poales. In Poales order, all the cereals like rice, wheat, maize, rye, etc. belongs. Family is Poaceae. Genus is Triticum. And species is Triticum aestivum. And we will underline them. So I gave you 2 examples, one from animal kingdom, one from plant kingdom, that are man and wheat respectively. And these are the rules for categorizing them. But remember, we cannot write only specific name separately because the specific name has no importance without its generic name. Next, let's discuss about kingdom classification. From the Vedic eras, human was always curious about its surrounding animals and plants, and he has always categorized them as plant group and animal group. Again, plants were categorized as monocots and dicots. So the valid classification first was given by Carlos Linnaeus. Hence, he is known as the father of taxonomy. Carlos Linnaeus gave 2 kingdom classification according to which he divided all living organisms into two groups, that is Plantae and Animalia. Carlos Linnaeus also did extensive studies on varieties of plant group and animal group, and he wrote two books. Carlos Linnaeus, first book is Systema Naturae, and another book is Generic Plantarum. In these two books, he classified many plants and animals, thousands of plants and animals, in which category they belong and what are their characteristics and on which basis they are categorized. But in two kingdom classification of Linnaeus, there were certain drawbacks, as in Plantae and Animalia kingdom, there was no place for microbes. Some microbes were included under Plantae, some were under Animalia, but there was no separate groups. That's why to overcome those drawbacks, another kingdom was there, three kingdom classification introduced by Ernst Haeckel. He classified all organisms into three groups, that are Protista, Plantae and Animalia. Protista is the microbe group, Plantae plant group, and Animalia is the animal group. Then again, it has certain drawbacks. To overcome that, another classification, four kingdom classification was introduced. It was proposed by scientist Copeland, and he classified organisms into four groups, that are Monera, Protista, Plantae and Animalia. Under Monera, he subjected all the prokaryotic microbes. Under Protista, all eukaryotic microbes. Under Plantae, multicellular plants, and under Animalia, multicellular animals. But in five kingdom classification, it is the most accepted classification till now. It was proposed by R.H. Whitaker, Robert Whitaker, who classified organisms into five groups. Monera is the prokaryotic microbe group. Protista is the eukaryotic microbe group. Fungi is the multicellular but non-photosynthetic group. Plantae, again another group with plants, and Animalia, as before, animal group it includes. So all these groups are based on phylogenetic relationship, on which they are categorized from higher to lower group. So Monera is the lowest group, while Animalia is the highly evolved and most advanced group. And we will talk about five kingdom classification in details in next class. So till then, good day.